guys, I'm Layla. We are in Raid Shadow Legends, and we're checking out the newest mythic champ that was added to the game. This is Theodosia the Disgraced. So already her base form, I think, looks pretty cool. Love the halo. The mask is really neat, and it's like you could kind of see her face glowing through with this iridescent like purple, right? The dress is amazing. The cape, the staff, like all of it, love it. So let's check out her Super Saiyan form. Okay, she's really cool. Now we can see the purple. This is kind of what was behind the mask there, right? In her normal form. Yes, Super Saiyan Theodosia. She looks neat. I love how okay, so they have her kind of this like half purple iridescent. She looks so cool. Oh my gosh. I'd love to know what you guys think of her and her design. I think Raid nailed it with her. But then again, Raid does a fantastic job with their character design. Like it's absolutely ridiculous what they do. Yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous. So what we're going to do is we're going to read her lore story. I haven't read it at all. I purposely waited. I wanted to read it with you guys. So I know nothing about it. And I'm hoping it kind of provides more in-depth to this. She is undead. So she kind of gives me like Sify vibes in some way. Except Sify is, she's got the iridescent blue. Theodosia has the purple. So let's check it out and read it together. Narses and Ankara, who ruled over the Dragonkin Empire, satrap of Valdemar in ancient times, were wise and beloved leaders, and so the expectations on their heirs was high. Their firstborn was a daughter they named Theodosia, whom they raised with endless loving care. However, from her youngest age, there was a dark and dangerous aspect of Theodosia's personality that proved impossible to suppress or ignore. She hit and bit other children and her nursemaids, and as she grew older, she took to impaling and torturing small animals for pleasure. She was startlingly intelligent, ahead of all her peers, but her speech was colored by grim, sardonic humor and strange, antiquated phrases. Several times, she was caught trying to take restricted occult books from the royal library, and on other occasions, she succeeded, only for the tomes to be discovered under her bed or in her closet. Rumors swirled that she was demon-touched, or a fey changeling who had snatched the real Theodosia from her crypt. Nothing Narses and Ankara did tame Theodosia's wanton cruelty and appetite for things secret and forbidden. They realized that she was not a suitable heir, and potentially even a danger to the stability of the realm. By the time Theodosia was a teen, the noble class was already murmuring in discontent about the possibility of her ascending to the throne. After consulting with sages and seers, with heavy hearts, the royal parents tricked Theodosia into leaving the court for a diplomatic mission, which actually was a one-way ticket trip to an isolated Lumaean monastery perched on the coastal cliffs of eastern Valdemar. Theodosia was to spend her life cloistered and isolated in constant prayer and meditation to extinguish the evil within her, with armed guards to prevent her disobedience or escape. Theodosia pretended to repent and did as the monks in the monastery commanded, while taking advantage of the monastery's vast library to learn all she could about magic and the occult. With seductive teases and empty promises, she charmed the guards overseeing the forbidden tomes and had been locked away in the monastery to isolate their evil from the rest of Teleria, just as Theodosia herself had been. From those, she secretly learned spells of flesh-twisting transmutation and unnatural regeneration, and charms to bend the wills and poison the thoughts of others. Gradually, she corrupted many of the monks and nuns, convincing, coercing, or enchanting them into helping her acquire more power. She took possession of two potent and dangerous relics from the monastery's vault, an antique dagger with a blade ebon black known as the Hate Thorn, and a macabre snake-girdled and skull-crowned staff, the Serpentina. Theodosia infused the two weapons with power that would enhance her own magic as long as she carried them. To do this, she not only sacrificed many of her followers, but gave up half of her own body's vital essence. Forever after, the left half of her body was necrotic and discolored. Those members of the monastery not under Theodosia's thumb realized, almost too late, that Theodosia was rotting the organization from within. They banded together and a single terrible night fell upon Theodosia and her followers and put them all to the sword and the torch. Theodosia's wrath was terrible. Monks and nuns saw their flesh turn to ash or slime and slough from their bonds, or swell and burst with mutagenic growth. Nevertheless, Theodosia was overwhelmed and crushed to death by a dozen zealot bodies pinning her down. The breath squeezed from her chest. She was buried in the monastery crypt, sealed in a chamber that was walled off and forgotten. Though at the request of Narses and Ankara, she was still given the traditional rites of mummification according to Valdemar nobility. The monks purged all records of her cult and spoke no more of the dark chapter in their history. Centuries later, the scourge of darkness swept across Teleria, creating the plague of undeath. The rage and ambition still lingering in Theodosia's mummified body, as well as the residual dark magic she carried, were like a beacon to the scourge, and she arose from death. She felt no confusion or hesitation about her new condition. Rather, it felt natural and right, a proper immortal body to suit her endless hunger to dominate others and inflict pain. With an evocation of withering, she turned the walls of her tomb to dust and found that in intervening years the monastery had been abandoned and fallen to ruin. But her totems of power, Hatethorn and Serpentia, were not present. Theodosia felt them calling to her like the squalling of lost infants. She tracked them down to a sacred order reliquary vault. With ease and confidence, she walked to the order's fortress and killed all who stood in her way, ripping souls from bodies and warping limbs and torsos into crippled and twisted mockeries of the natural form with only a gesture. Her ancient arcana had only been enhanced by the dark power of undeath. After retrieving her weapons, Theodosia pondered what to do with her newfound power and freedom. Before she could decide, however, she felt a magical pulse from afar, and in her mind's eye witnessed her mother and father's withered bodies arising from their own tomb. She deduced that Narses and Ankara had, like her, been raised. Recalling their trickery and betrayal that consigned her to the monastery, a thirst for revenge awoke in her heart, and she left at once to confront her undead parents. She found no trace of the great satrapy of Valdemar that once stood there, and no sign of her parents. Unbeknownst to her, they had been recruited by Mother Cybele and Losan Cleth. Refusing to forgive them or give up her search, Theodosia set off to scourge Teleria for clues as to their whereabouts. With an eternity of unlife before her, she vowed to spend as long as it took to bring about a bitter, vengeful reunion. Wow, okay. That was a good story, guys. So she's a princess. She's the daughter of King Narses and Queen Ankara. I love how they did that. Such a nice twist to it. So it makes sense. And I love how they also tied it in the end about how her parents were also risen, which we knew, which are in their lore stories too, which I have read and shared as well too, by the way. And it's true that Mother Cybele recruited them and they're part of the Night Revenant, but we have her being arisen, and a lot of it makes sense for why she's in the undead, and I love it. So they tied in why she looks like this, which is great. I would love to know what you guys think about the lore story for Theodosia the Disgraced. Drop me a comment down below on what you're thinking of this, and thanks for watching.